Okay, let's get started. Now, there are 4 ways to represent relationships between two variables, okay? Some of these look familiar because we have spoken about them before. Now, if you look here carefully, the first one is through an algebraic formula, right? So the output, which we usually represent using a y, is equal to something x plus something. So in this case, in this specific case, y is equal to 5x plus 20, which means we will multiply by 5, because 5x means 5 times x, and then add 20. So my first form of representation is the algebraic formula. All right. The second one is the one we started off this section with, and that is my flow diagram. And just to remind ourselves how this worked again, we would have our input values on the left-hand side, our input or x values, and then our output values. Let me zoom in a little bit. There we go. Our output values or the y values are on our right-hand side. And then in the middle of my flow diagram is the function. So as I said, first we're going to multiply by 5 and then add 20. So you take all of these values that say input, you operate them. So you say -1 times 5, which will give you -5. Then you say plus 20, which will give you positive 15. Okay. The third way to represent a function we have worked with as well. This was in our last lesson. This is through the table. Okay. It is much like my flow diagram. The only difference is that my input values or my x values will be at the top of the table, and my output or y values will be at the bottom of the table. All right. And in this case, we usually just write the formula on top of the table or as part of the instructions. So for this table, it's the same rule still. We're showing you how to represent it in many ways. And the final way to represent functions is through a graph. Now, this is the only one that we have not dealt with so far. So that's the one we're going to deal with today. Okay, we're going to see what a graph looks like for certain types of functions. All right. Now, I want you guys to familiarize yourself or take a screenshot of all 4 of these ways to represent functions. Okay, and what we're going to do today is see how do we go from one form of representation to another. So we're going to go, for instance, from a flow diagram to a algebraic formula, or from a table to a flow diagram, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's what we're doing today. Now, let us start off with what we haven't done yet, which is the graph. Now, what we have here, we call a Cartesian plane. Okay, so this is basically as if we are drawing a graph on grid paper. Okay, grid paper might sound a little bit more familiar to you. So it's made with a y and x axis. So my y axis is the vertical axis, and the x-axis is my horizontal axis. Okay, now as you see here, this is just a combination of 2 number lines. So I'm going to write that here. A Cartesian plane is a combination of 2 number lines, as you can see here. Okay, so we have my vertical number line, which we call y, and my horizontal number line, which we call x. So in the middle of my 2 number lines is the origin. Okay, so the origin is where 0 is for both number lines. And when we look at, let's start with the horizontal number line, That is the x-axis. We call it the x-axis. When we start from the middle going to the right, that is where all my positive numbers are. So if you look here carefully, you have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And then we have an arrow at the end of the side. What does this arrow mean, guys? Do you know what that arrow means at the end of the Cartesian plane? We have an arrow right at the end of my Cartesian plane. Do you know what it means? Anyone have an idea? Why did we not just end this Cartesian plane with just the line? There we go, Seth. That's correct. It means this number line continues forever and ever and ever to infinity. Okay? So this arrow shows us that the number line will continue. Okay, so this number line does not end at 9. Goes forever and ever. So it'll be 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, up until infinity. Okay, same with the negative side of my number line. So the right-hand side of the x-axis is positive and my left-hand side is negative. If you look here, -1, -2, -3, all the way to -9. And once again, we have that arrow that shows us that it continues to negative infinity. Okay, so that is my x-axis. Now, if we look at the y-axis or the vertical number line, this one goes positive going upwards. So my positive numbers will start from 0 in the middle once again. And then if you go up, as you can see, 1, 2, 3, those are all my positive numbers. Okay, so this one will continue until positive infinity. The numbers will keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger and greater up until infinity. And once again, going down is all my negative y values. All right, so this is my number line. Now, these two number lines divide my page into 4 parts. Do you see that? So if I start on my right-hand side over here, we call these quadrants. Okay, so we call these 4 parts quadrants. So quadrant 1, we start counting from, always we start counting from the quadrant on the top right. That is quadrant 1. Now in quadrant 1, any points that are in quadrant 1, both the x and the y value will be positive. Do you see that it says that here? So in quadrant 1, you will have a positive x value and a positive y value. And then we move on to the top left where we have quadrant 2. And in quadrant 2, I will have a negative x value, but I'll still have a positive y value. Now that's because of where we are in the Cartesian plane. Remember I said if you start from 0, going left, those are all the negative x values. So now we are in the negative x territory, but we are still above the 0 for the y. So that's why my y is still positive. Do you guys see that? And then we move on to quadrant 3 over here, bottom left. And in quadrant 3, both my x and my y value will be negative. Okay, so any of the points that we find in quadrant 3, both x and y will be negative. And finally, we move on to quadrant 4, where my x is positive because we're on the right-hand side, but my y is negative because we're at the bottom. So you guys must remember how to number these quadrants correctly. We always go in the same way, anti-clockwise, starting with the top right. Okay, now let's talk about how we write points or coordinates. Coordinates are always written in the form. You first write your x coordinates, semicolon, and then my y coordinates in brackets. If you do not write it this way, they are not coordinates. They are just random numbers on the page. Okay, So you must make sure that you write them specifically in this way that I am telling you. Now, how do we find the X and Y coordinates, guys? How do I find my X and Y coordinates? Does anyone know? If I asked you for the coordinates of A, so A is located right here. Okay. Firstly, what quadrant is A in? Which quadrant is A in? Let's practice our quadrants first. It's in quadrant 1. Okay. So I expect both of my points to be, will they both be negative or positive? Both of them will be positive. So I'll have a positive X value and a positive Y value. Right. Now, I said we first start with the X. Now I'm going to name this point. I'm going to write A next to it so you know I'm talking about point A. And then I open my brackets. Now let's go see where it is in relation to X. Okay. So you always start in the middle over there where 0 is. Check where A lines up with your x-axis. So you can either draw a line going down up until it touches your your x-axis, excuse me, not y, your x-axis, or you can just count how far away from the 0 it is. Okay, so we're starting from here and it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So what is my x coordinate for A? Nice, Logan. I see your answer. So right, Alam, welcome. So my x coordinates is 7, okay? And then we start from y, going back to 0, and it is 1, 2 units going up. So it's also a positive 2. And those are my coordinates for A. Now I want us to practice writing these coordinates correctly, as in, I expect you guys to write brackets, my x coordinate, semicolon, my y coordinate, close the bracket. Okay, so I'm going to highlight a few points here for us to find their coordinates. So we're going to find the coordinates of P, the coordinates of G. Okay, I'm going to erase all of this color stuff that I wrote here. The coordinates of Z, coordinates of I, O, and E. Okay, now let's go on to the coordinates of P. So P is over here. For anyone who might not be able to see it, it's over there. Okay, let's write the coordinates of P. First, you write the letter next to your bracket, and I open my bracket. What is my X and Y coordinates for P? What are my X coordinates and Y coordinate for P? Nice. Okay, so we start off with X. It's only 1 unit away from 0. So my X coordinates is 1. And my Y coordinates is 1, 2. So this is my coordinates. Okay. Now I see you guys need to be careful a little bit. Remember, you just write the letter next to the brackets. It's not necessary to say equals. Okay. You just write the letter and then you do your brackets and you do your thing. Another thing that you guys have not been caught out on, you always write the coordinates according to the dot. You see where the dot is? That is where it is, not according to where your letter is. Your letter is in the middle of the block, right? That's not what we're looking for here. Okay, that's my coordinate for P. Let's move on to the coordinates of G. Coordinates of G for me, please. G is up here. There we go. Nice, Seth. X coordinate 1, 2, 3, but it's on the negative side of X, so that's negative 3. And for Y, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Nice, guys. Coordinates of O. Coordinates of O. O is over here. Let's see. Oh, let's see. Okay, from the x-axis, it is indeed at negative 7. And y-axis it is 1, 2, and 3. Wonderful. The coordinates of z. Z is on my x-axis over here. It is not always in the corner, Blessing. I will tell you now when it's not always in the corner. Okay. Nice, guys. So my x coordinates is -2 because it is on -2, right? And for the y, it didn't move. So it's still on the 0 coordinates. Okay. So it is -2 and 0. So going back to Blessing's question, okay? Blessing, this is a number line, which means it is possible for us to have, for instance, 8.5, which would be over there. Right? So if I have a coordinate, for instance, that's there in the middle there, that's still a valid coordinate. That would be the coordinate 1 and 5, 5. So it won't always be on the lines here. Okay, it is possible for your coordinates to be in the middle of the block. When that happens, you need to just estimate, or if you have proper grid paper, you know that one that has the small blocks. Like there's grid paper, and then there's one that has the really tiny blocks where you can accurately count. Let me see if I can get that here. So I can either have this grid, right? I'm just showing you guys an example. So this is the thick grid blocks, right? Or I can have a grid like that where the grid blocks are a little bit smaller, or a grid like that where the grid blocks are really tiny. And in this case, you would be able to accurately find the decimal points. Okay. I hope I answered your question, Blessing. Okay, we have done Z. Let's move on to I. The coordinates of I. And that is -8 and -6. Nice, Eminati. And finally, the coordinates of E. I'm glad you understand, Blessing. E is 7 and -6. Wonderful. Okay. So do you guys now understand how this works? Let us check. Okay, we've already done some of this, but let's answer a few of these. Which point is located at each ordered pair? So this time they're giving us coordinates. They didn't even write them correctly because this is supposed to be a semicolon, not a comma. Okay, so let me fix this quickly. I'm going to write a dot there, a dot there. Let's just do the odd numbers. So number 1, -9 and -1. Which point is located there? -9, -1. Nice, Chedza. That is point D. For those who didn't see it, like me, for a while I was like, what? It's over there. Okay. Next one, -3 and +5. -3, +5. Oh, let me move this up so you can see. Which one is located at -3 and +5? That would be J. Okay. -6 and +2. Nice, that's V. And +7 and -6. +7 with -6. That is E. Nice, guys. Wonderful, wonderful. Now for this one, we already wrote the ordered pair for some of these, okay? Let's just write the coordinates of M for me. Where's M? I can't even see it. Oh, there it is. M is right at the corner over here. What are my coordinates for M? 9 and +2. That is correct. 9, 2. Coordinates for H. Let's see coordinate for H. That's over here. My coordinates for H, let's see, -7, +5. That's correct. Beautiful, guys. Z, okay, we've already done Z. Okay, we set in -2 and 0. And P we've already done is 1 and 2. Now the last one says plot the following points on the coordinate grids. I'm only going to plot 2 of these, okay? So S is -3 and -1. So I'm going to start at my x-axis. I'm going to start in the 0, -3. 1, 2, 3. I'm at -3 and -1. So I must go down 1. So that's the point over there. And they said we must name that point S. So this is S. And the next one is -4 with +7. So with -4, I'm starting in the middle. Will I go left or right? -4, am I going to go left or am I going to go right? Left. Nice. 1, 2, 3, 4. And +7, am I going up or am I going down? Up. Nice. I'm going up 7. So I'm going to end up over there. And that letter is U. That is a terrible dot. So I'm going to redo that. And this is point U. Okay, can I have a thumbs up, thumbs down on plotting and finding points on a Cartesian plane? Nice, guys. I said 5 instead of F. Where? Okay, I can't see my mistake right now. But as long as you guys understood what I meant, okay? Okay. Now, let us compare tables with graphs. You guys remember this exercise, right? In the previous lesson, we were matching formulas with tables. Now, in this case, we're going to match graphs with the same tables, okay? So I have 4 graphs here, A, B, C, D, and 4 tables, A, B, C, D, and you guys need to match these graphs and tables, okay? On the Cartesian plane. Okay, I can't see where we're talking about. Okay, it should be fine though. You guys should be fine. All right, now let's look at table A. Okay, I would say look at the points you have on the graphs. Okay, look at the points you have on the graphs. Graph A, which point have we been given here? If it is on the y-axis, what is my x coordinate? Did we move left or right at all? Do you guys think we moved left or right at all? No, we didn't. So then my x coordinate is what? Nice, guys. My x coordinate is 0. And then my y coordinate has been written down there for us. They told us where the dot is. So my y coordinate is -1. Now let's look for a table where this corresponds, okay? Table A, 0 goes with -1. We found it. First time trying and we've already found it. Okay? Table B, unfortunately, doesn't have a 0. Neither does table C. Okay, table C does, but it's 0 with 2, which is not what we're looking for. And table D does not have a 0. So graph A goes with table A. So I'm going to write here, not with that one. This is graph A. Let's look at graph B. We have 2 points in this case, right? Let's start with this point up here. Did we move left or right on the x-axis at all? with the point at the top there, have we moved at all left or right? Seth says yes. It is on the y-axis. Look at it carefully, guys. This point over here. This one. Have we moved x left or right? That's the question. I'm speaking about x. Botali says yes. Where did we move, guys? Over here. The point is on the graph. If the point is on the y-axis, did we move left or right at all? If it is on the axis. No, we haven't moved. Do you guys understand? So then what is my x coordinate for this point? It is 0. We have not moved because it is on the axis. We have moved up, but we have not moved left or right. So how many units up did we move? What is my y coordinate for this? It is 4. Okay, that's point number 1 on this graph. Now let's go to point number 2, which is over here. The green, well, it was green just now when I highlighted it. Okay, now for the green point, well, now it looks yellow. Did I move left or right at all? I moved left, right? How many times did I move left? 2. So is it a positive or a negative 2? Is my point a positive 2 or a negative 2? It is a negative 2. Okay, now did I move up or down at some point for that same point? Nice, we're getting it now. Okay, so that means my y coordinate is what if I haven't moved at all? My y coordinate is 0. Okay, so now we have 2 points here. Let's compare it with our tables. Okay, remember every time your x is on this side and my y is on this side. And in my table, x is at the top, y is at the bottom. Now let's compare it with this one. -2 for x. We don't even have a -2 here. Okay. And we don't even, we do have a 4 for y, but it does not go with 0. So does table B match with graph B? Does table B match with graph B? Do you guys think? No, it doesn't. So let's move on. Okay. Let's move on to table C. Let's move on to table C. When my x coordinate is -2, we don't even have an x coordinate of -2, but we do have a y coordinate that is 0. That is 4, excuse me. That is 4 for an x that is 0. Do they correlate? No, they don't. I'm actually realizing graph B doesn't have anyone that correlates over here. So let's try the other graphs and see if we can find a match over here. I just realized graph B, for now we cannot figure it out. So let's check. If we cannot figure it out with the current points we have, how are we going to do it? Does anybody know? There is a way to do it. Does anyone have an idea of how we're going to do it? If we do not have the exact points, does anyone have an idea of how we're going to figure out which graph matches with which table? By finding the formula, guys, the formula of the graph. And then from there on, we will substitute here and see if we get the correct answer. But for now, graph B doesn't match with anyone, right? Let's look at graph C. Graph C, okay, I'm going to write the points quickly here. Here I have a 0, 2. And here I have a 3, 0. Do those points match with any of the tables that you see over here? I have a 0, 2, and a 3, 0. Does anybody see? Nice. Graph C matches with table C. And if you cannot see it, This point, 0, 2, is this one. Okay, and the 3, 0 point is this one. So it matches with that graph, okay? Now let's look at this one. We have a point that says 6, 2 for graph D. Is there any point that says 6, 2 for graph D? Be careful. For the coordinate of 6, 2, which one is my x coordinate and which one is my y coordinate? Remind me again. Oh, but we do have it. I didn't see it. It's over there. It's over there. It's for B. So then table B goes with graph D. So then that means that table B will be, graph B will be with table D. Okay. Did you guys understand how we match those? So you find the coordinates and then you match it. Let's have a thumbs up, thumbs down for that exercise. I hope my confusion didn't confuse anyone else here. Give me a thumbs up, thumbs down. I got a whole unicorn, guys. I love it. And celebrations and hearts. I love it, guys. Thank you. Okay, now let's go through different types of representations. After all, that's what we're doing today, right? We're doing different types of representations here. Now, I have a formula. They've given me a formula, and they've given me my x values. Is x the input or the output values? X, are those my input values or are those my output values? They are my input. So are they going on the left or the right of this flow diagram? They're going on the left. Okay, so remember this side is my input or X. So this side will be my output or Y. Okay, so I'm going to write all my inputs down on the input side. So I have a negative 16, negative 4, a 0, a 3, and an 8. Done. Okay, now we have to fill in this formula that they've given us. Y is equal to x divided by 2 plus 1. What is the first, what math says, which one is the first operation that we have to do here? So my first operation is going to go in block number 1. Which is the first operation we're going to do here based on this formula that I wrote down at the bottom? Fractions, but this is not actually a fraction, it's a division. Okay, it's x divided by 2. So here we're going to have a divided by 2. And then what happens after we divide by 2? It's okay, Seth. Nice, we're going to add 1. Now let's fill in my outputs over here. Let's start with negative 16 divided by 2 plus 1. What's negative 16 divided by 2? Be careful, don't skip steps. You'll see why just now. This is negative 8. And if I add 1, what is my answer? Nice, so funny. It's negative 7. So my output for negative 16 will be negative 7. Okay, that was the first one. The next one, negative 4 divided by 2 plus 1. What's negative 4 divided by 2? That is negative 2. And if I add 1, that is negative 1. Nice, guys. Okay, next one, 0 divided by 2 plus 1. What's 0 divided by 2? It is 0. And if I add 1 to that, then my output is 1. Right, next one. 3 divided by 2 plus 1. What's 3 divided by 2? 1 comma 5. And then if I add 1, So I can either write it as a decimal, which will give me 2.5, or can write it as 5/2. Okay, so I'm going to keep it as 5/2 here. All right, and for my last one, I have 8 divided by 2 plus 1, and 8 divided by 2 is indeed 4. If you add 1 to that, my output is nice, guys. You guys are going so fast. Nice. So do you see how we fit the different interpretations or representations into one another? We took a formula or an algebraic equation and we fit it into my flow diagram to complete it. So we're done. Input, output, done. Okay. Wonderful. Let's move on. Now we're given a formula and a table. So we need to correctly fill in this table. Now, we've been given our formula here, which is y equals 16 divided by x. And once again, we've been given our inputs. Are my inputs going to go at the top, middle, or at the bottom? Where are those inputs going to go on my table? At the top. Okay, so let me write these down. So that's -8, -4, 0, 1, and 16. Then here, I'm just going to write my formula, which is 16 divided by x. Okay, and then now we're going to work them out. Where are my outputs going to go, middle or bottoms? We still have 2 columns to fill in here. Are they going to go at the middle or at the bottom? My outputs. Bottom. So you guys are saying over here. That's the bottom. So are they going in the middle, which is over here, or at the bottom? At the middle, guys. Okay, so let's get working. First one, 16 divided by x, which is -8. And my answer is, nice, Iminati, -2. So my output for the first one is -2. My second one, I have 16 divided by -4. And my answer is, I hope you guys are not using calculators there. It's -4. The next one is very interesting. I have 16 divided by 0. What's my answer going to be for this one? Can you divide numbers by 0? No. So what in fact is my answer here? Nice. Beautiful. This is undefined. Okay. So this is let's see if I can fit it here. Undefined. There we go. Next, I have 16 divided by 1, and that's going to give me just a 16. And for the last one, I have 16 divided by 16, and my answer is going to be 1. 1. Okay. All right, now we need to write these as coordinates. So tell me how I'm going to write the first column as coordinates. We have our x value and we have our y value. So write it for me correctly in the chat, my coordinates for the first one. Oh, you guys are both missing something. Nice, Imi. Buhlale, be careful. Guys, it has to be an open bracket, my x coordinate, a semicolon, not a colon, not a full stop, not a comma, semicolon, and my y coordinate, and close my brackets. If any of those are missing, that is not a coordinate. Okay, you need to write these correctly. The second one, what are my coordinates for the second one? Nice, we're getting there. We're getting much better at this. -4, semicolon, -4, and I'm closing my brackets. Okay. The third one does not have a coordinate, so I'm just going to say NA. Does anybody know what NA stands for? This is not applicable. You cannot have a coordinates with an undefined number. Okay. Coordinates for the fourth one. Nice. 1 and 16. And my coordinates for the last one. Nice, Logan. It is 16 and 1. Beautiful. Okay. And then from here on out, you would draw a graph, which is not today's lesson yet. We're not drawing graphs today. We'll be drawing graphs in the next lesson. Okay. All right, let's look at the next one. We're matching graphs again. We're matching, oh, this is interesting. So this time we've been given points. And we need to match these points to the graph, the equation, excuse me, the equation. Okay, now let's see. Let's see what we have here. How would you guys suggest we do this? Personally, I would look at a point. For instance, I am choosing this point. What is that point that I now just highlighted yellow on my graph? Give me the coordinates of this point over here. It is not 3. The coordinates, the full coordinates. 3 is only part of it. Nice. It is 1 and 3. We're swapping them around. Remember, the x is 1. X always comes first. So the x is 1 and my y is 3. So I'm going to go and say y is equal to, and I'm going to substitute 1. Okay, and if I get the answer 3, that means my graph matches. But if I don't get the answer 3, that means my graph doesn't match. Do you guys see how I'm going to do this? So for the first one, it's y equals 1 plus 2, which is 3. Is that correct? Yes, it is. I'm going to try it with one more point to make sure. Tell me what this coordinate is over here. This one that I highlight, the second highlighted coordinate is -1 and 1. Okay. Once again, I'm going to say y equals -1 plus 2. What's -1 plus 2? -1 plus 2. What does that equal? 1. Is that correct? Is that the coordinate we wanted? Yes, it is. Look carefully. Remember, this was the original point. I just substituted -1 and I got 1. So then that means, I should probably number these. That would be wonderful. That means equation A goes with graph E, F, G, and H. That means equation A goes with graph 1. So I'm going to write here equation 1. Done. Now let's look at graph 3. Equation A, not 1. Okay. Let's look at graph 3. Once again, I'm going to choose points. I choose this point over here. What are the coordinates of the green points I just highlighted? I'm going to write it over here so we can see it. It is -1 and 0. Great. Let's substitute it into B. Let's substitute it into B, okay? So B says y equals x minus 2. So x is -1 minus 2. That gives me -3. Is that a match? Is that a match? No. Let's move on to C. Okay. Y is equal to -1 minus 2. What's -1? What's going to happen with these two negatives? They're going to give me a +1 minus 2. And what's +1 minus 2? -1. Is that a match for my coordinate? Look at my coordinate. Am I looking for a -1? No, I'm looking for a 0. Okay, let's move on to graph D. Y equals -1. This time is +2. Okay, so give us 1 plus 2, which is 3. Is that a match? No. Oh, this graph is stubborn. Let's move on to graph E. Y equals a half times -1 plus 2. What's a half times -1? A half times -1, that's -1/2. It's -0.5 plus 2, and this is going to give me 1.5. Is that a match? Nope. Okay, I'm going to skip the other half one because I already know that we're not looking for a decimal, right? So it's between G and H. Which one do you guys think it is? Before I do it, let's have a quick vote. Do you guys think it's G or do you think it's H? It's one of these two. It's either G or it's H. Okay, let's check. We have one vote for each. Let's check. Y equals -2 times -1 minus 2. A negative and a negative are going to give me a +2 minus 2, and my answer is 0. Is that what I'm looking for? Yes. So it was, in fact, equation G. Nice, guys. Beautiful, beautiful. I hope you liked that question as much as I did. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Did you understand how I match these graphs? We're only going to do 2 of them. Nice, guys. I'm loving all the thumbs up. And the positive reactions. Okay, we did have these ones. But I do want to do this one quickly. Okay, this time I flipped my graph upside down because it's just going to be easier. I mean my table, right? I flipped my table because it will be easier. Now let's look here. Let's look carefully. Okay, I'm going to start here. I'm going to say A, B, a C, and a D. What are my coordinates for A? Coordinates for A, if you guys want me to zoom in, maybe so you can see better. There we go. Coordinates for A. Nice, 2, 7. Okay. So the first one, we have a 2 and a 7. My coordinates for B. My coordinates for B. Nice, Iminati. That is a 1 and a 2. And Bukhali. Nice, guys. And Luchevo, be careful. Always put brackets. Okay. My coordinates for C. Nice slogan and Iminati. That is 0 and -3. Oh, -3. And my coordinates for D. Whoop, I should probably move up so you can see. There we go. Coordinates for D. Look carefully. What are my coordinates for? What is the X coordinates and which one is the Y coordinates? Remember, X always comes first. Be careful. It is -1 and -8. Guys, remember, if you draw a line going all the way up there, where is this going to end up? At -1, and then going that way, it is -8. So this is -1, -8. Now, I'm going to write these down properly, okay? My X coordinate, well, my X point for here is 2. And then for the next one, what's the next one? The X, 1, and then a 0. And my last one, a -1. Wonderful. Now, what is my Y coordinates over here? A 7. Next, a 2. The next one, a -3. And my last one, a -8. Okay, we're going to start here next time, but quickly, I want you guys to tell me, what do we notice about the outputs here? Because it said we must find the equation of this graph. So we're moving all the way up to the algebraic equation. What do we notice about these outputs? 7, 2, -3, -8. What's happening there? How did I get from 7 to 2? From there to there? From there to there. Nice, Seth. -5, -5, -5, which means -5 will be my, what's my magic word? -5, nice. We have found our multiplier. And we'll start off from here on Thursday because we will be doing graphs on Thursday.